Here is our high spot record of the week this week. It's on the Dot label. It's going to be sung by Mr. Jimmy D. It's entitled Henrietta.
I would give Bill credit for bringing Top 40 to the Twin Cities. It was a really new concept back then. There were a couple of stations that had dabbled in rock and roll, but WDGY came in with the idea that we're going to absolutely blow this market apart with Top 40 done right. But they needed somebody to really get it off the ground. They needed a showman, is really what it came down to. Jack Thayer had his sights set on Bill right from the start. He had puns, he had quips. He had this merriness to him when he was on the air that would really marry perfectly with rock and roll.
Oh my, they're knocking down the door tonight. Don't blame them, it's frosty out there. Let's let the Rays in, and maybe they'll tell us a little story on this night, huh? Rays?
Took a walk.
He immersed himself in the songs of the day and made it a point to get to know people like Buddy Holly and Elvis Presley. He knew where the culture was going, and he wanted to be there. You know, coming out of newspapers, he was a wordsmith. He was a genius at writing funny headlines. He sort of forced his way into a more prominent position by doing clever things that the older guys in the newsroom really didn't have the nerve or maybe the interest or the talent to do. He ended up getting the movie reviewing and columnist job at the Pioneer Press because he had impressed the editors that he really had a little something extra, a little pizzazz, a little zing, whatever you want to call it. And so he took that ability and realized that the typical teenager would really respond to this light, joking approach to the music. That even though he was a lot older than his audience, mentally he knew where they were and he met them there. Bill was the biggest thing in radio when the Trashmen were putting their act together. Well, Bill actually had heard it emceeing one of their gigs, and he said, "You should record that. That could be a hit." Bill said, "Call it Surfin' Bird," because this is 1963 and surfing is absolutely the peak musical genre at the time. It had nothing to do with surfing.
When did you do this thing, and what on earth inspired you to come up with and all of that crazy stuff? I heard that record, I fell in love with it. I said, that has got to be a hit.
Bill was the first to play it. It just went nuts. I mean, went to #1 on all the stations locally, and Bill has an awful lot to do with making that a song that everybody in the world knows now.
My God, this is Surfin' Bird by the Trashmen. This is my favorite song of all time. I want a bird, bird, bird.
Bill was chosen as the MC for the Beatles show.
And he came to me and he said, "I've got a chance to bring in the Beatles." And he said, "I want you to be the MC."
Bill had gone to Chicago a few days before the Beatles played here in the Twin Cities and actually filmed the Beatles, was introduced to them, and he really felt like he got a little bit closer to them. They knew who he was, they felt comfortable with him. So when the concert actually happened at Met Stadium, it was a very good fit. Now you talk about Bill being a guy in a suit and tie. Bill stood out, but he was his own persona. He never changed. He was what kids expected. If he tried to come out looking like a surfer or looking like a Beatle, it would have been laughable, but he didn't do that. He kept his persona, fit in perfectly with the music, and did a great job emceeing the Beatles. Well, I always thought of Bill as a promoter.
And I'm talking about the exciting new Cutlass Supreme from $11,995. That is a Best Buy, my friend.
Bill just knew the value of a personality pitching a good product. And I think that just carried over perfectly to the Wally McCarthy spots. He was a personality, he had a product he believed in, and people liked hearing him. They liked going to Wally McCarthy and seeing him there.
Helen, could we have some more popcorn here?
Get it yourself.
Yelling Helen. She's always kidding.
What do you miss about Bill the most?
That's a good, sorry. It's a good question. I miss running into him in the newsroom. Bill would come walking through the newsroom, coat and tie, on his way somewhere he never meandered, he never wandered. He was always on his way someplace. But if he saw me, he would stop and talk to me for a second, or if I passed him, I'd just ask him a question, just to learn as much as I could about the old days of radio, about the old days of the movies in Hollywood. If Bill had a minute to tell you a story, it was worth that minute. Well, I don't know if Bill ever felt like he needed an award or wanted it. I think he was really secure in who he was and what the public thought of him. He never had to wonder, do people appreciate me? He knew they did.